More monkey bashing from the celestial beings, who are surprisingly superior in attitude, given they have the same genital design as Action Man or Barbie. Smooth. Anyway. Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of That's Audiophiles. The guy on the left is John, the guy on the right is Andy. Well, I thought about my friend Michelle, how they rolled him in like linoleum and shot him in the neck, a bloody halo like a think bubble circling his head. And I bellowed at the firmament, looks like the rains are here to stay. And the rain pissed down upon me and washed me all away. More on that later. But first, we have a track to listen to. What do you got for us today, Brother Andy?
Well, the day has finally come. I've been promising this for a while, for you probably much to your chagrin, but we are going to be checking out a song by the band Tool today.
Okay.
And we've listened to some other music from Maynard. I think Pussifer and obviously a Perfect Circle. So now I finally wanted to take you back to kind of where it all started, to Tool, and I'm going to have you check out a track by them called Right in Two, like the number. So prepare yourself. It's a bit of a long one compared to some of the other stuff I've given you more recently, but it's a song I really like a lot. I'd love to hear your, take on it and what your experience was like giving it a go. So please do just that and come back and let me know what you think.
Good. Interesting start. 30 seconds in, well, it's a long song. No percussion, and that first guitar is sort of just doing the circular riff, and the second guitar is just it's almost marking time, doing those little chimes. Interesting.
Angels on the sideline, puzzled and amused. Why did Father give these humans free will? Now they're all confused. Don't these talking monkeys know that Eden has enough to go around? Plenty in this holy garden, silly monkeys, where there's one you're bound to divide.
Okay, interesting. So, someone else come in. He's got that sort of restrained voice it sometimes does. It's almost like commentary. There's mention of angels sort of kind of watching over of people calling them talking monkeys, I think. A bit racist. Talking about free will and Eden and Holy Garden. So this obviously has some sort of biblical perspective from which the narrative will drive, which is interesting. I heard these sort of clanks and strikes, a bit cowbells and saucepans, I don't know. But it kind of always makes me think of construction, like people hammering and tinkering away, or like a clockwork mechanism, which doesn't make that sound, I know, but it just always makes me think of that. So, yeah, interesting. Oh, change your guitar. drums.
Father bless them all with reason, and this is what they choose. Monkey killing, monkey, you're pieces of the ground. Silly monkeys, give them thumbs, they forge your blade, and brothers want the bound to divide it. Right monkey killing, monkey, you're pieces of the ground.
That was nice. Then you had those guitar sort of shards, I call them, of sound. It's quite post-punk sound. Kind of reminds me a little bit of John McGeoch stuff, particularly Magazine. I bet just does. And you had a nice sort of mini fill, and then we're into proper drums going, because before that it was hand drums that sounded really nice. So it's kind of changing and progressing the music as he's singing. Monkeys killing monkeys for over a piece of ground or something interesting.
Silly monkeys, give them thumbs, they make a club and beat the brother down. How they survive so misguided is a mystery. Repugnant is a creature who once wandered the ability to lift the light of heaven, conscious of this fleeting time here.
That sounded weird. Let me just. But I saw that. I heard that.
Repugnant is a creature who once wandered the ability to lift the light of heaven, conscious of this fleeting time here.
Oh, one place to stop. It's something like repugnant is a creature who will squander. So I can't even read what I just scribbled down. Squander is the ability to lift an eye towards heaven. Something about fleeting time here. That sounds really odd compared to the other bits of lyrics I've heard so far. That sounded a bit almost like it was a quote from scripture or something. Perhaps it's meant to be, but it just stuck out. It was really odd. Okay. I was about to kick off, so let's just go back with it. Seems like the smoke's clearing. That sounds nice. growing in rapidity. Okay, interesting. Very interesting. I think towards the 5 to 6 minute mark, it started to get into more heavier metally type territory than I'm particularly comfortable with, but it almost took me all the way, not quite. It was really interesting that musical breakdown. So we were talking before about monkeys killing monkeys, and it was basic conflict. Um, and I just wondered, seemed like an escalation throughout. Almost, we started off with the hand drums, and it's almost like sticks, basic musical, and it sounded great. Really like that. And then the guitars came in. I think it was aping the sort of conflicts that he was describing before and the way it develops. Um, so like the guitars, I guess, would be like gunpowder or whatever. Then it would be and the heavier stuff coming in. It felt more like heavy ordnance, cannons, etc. And there was a bit in there that sort of was a little bit swirly, and to my mind, just pinging mustard gas. And then it got heavier and heavier into sort of more modern warfare, um, fighter planes and stuff like you can imagine in terms of the music. It's quite interesting. The sort of biblical sort of perspective is interesting to start as well. And even the title, Right in Two, and what it could mean in this. If you cut something right in two, is that diminishing it, or do you share it equally? Is it mitosis, cell division, meiosis, splitting, be able to sort of reunite in terms of reproduction? Yeah, it's just really interesting. Well, we'll have to chew this one over and go back and speak with Brother Andy.
All right. So you return from your odyssey of listening to this song Right in Two by Tool. What do you have to say about it, John?
Okay, so it begins in darkness, and then there was rock. Sorry, wrong song. So you get these rhythms of this guitar chiming away, with this secondary guitar chipping in, and no percussion. So it's almost like the second guitar is almost marking time or notation. Quite interesting. And then the vocals join in, and it's that sort of restrained version of his voice, almost like commentary, which we've heard in some songs. We do get percussion now in the form of cowbells and other sort of metallic strikes, probably saucepans, I don't know. But it always gives me, when you get these sort of things, it always gives me the impression of like small scale industry, like construction, but on a basic level. Or, I don't know, these things don't make that noise, but clockwork devices, for some reason, they don't make those metallic strikes, but the sound of that makes me think of clockwork, sort of this basic technology. We get some interesting lyrics delivered, as I say, by Maynard. Something about angels. I'm sort of commenting down. Something about why did Father give these humans free will? Something like talking monkeys and Eden, and then this holy garden. So there's clearly a biblical perspective, at least, to this song in terms of how it's narrated. I don't know if we're talking about the fall or something else, but just as Maynard sings with a really extended hanging last note, right in two, the guitars that we have from before suddenly changes and it becomes, for me, closer. It has a muted quality, it's palmed, and it makes it more intimate. It's a very small but definite change, step in tone for me. Next verse, more angels. At this point, the percussion changes to hand drums with the occasional bass bump, boom, which is interesting. And we get one of the lines that sticks out to me is monkey killing monkey over pieces of the ground. The aforementioned monkeys, slightly racist from the angels, gets opposable thumbs, and hey presto, tools. Anyway, in this case, weapons. Maynard repeats that right in two again, and we have some proper post-punk, I would call them like angular shards of sound from the guitar. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of John McGeoch's stuff in Magazine. Those sort of like brittle, sort of almost like lightning bolts of sound. Really nice. And then in come the drums proper for the next verse, so we get a proper beat. More monkey bashing from the celestial beings, who are surprisingly superior in attitude, given they have the same genital design as Action Man or Barbie. Ooh. Anyway, we get these lines, which is really interesting. I had to pull them back and again because it kind of stuck out for me. Repugnant is creature who would, I think, it was squander ability to lift an eye to heaven, conscious of fleeting time here. And the way it stuck out for me because it sounded really odd compared to the previous vocabulary. It just almost clunky in a way compared to the other language in the song so far. And it made me feel, is it some sort of quote? It almost feels like cod scripture or something like that. And I guess it's meant to sound like that. But just that was a really interesting couple of lines. And then it sort of sings, I think it's cut it all right in two a number of times, four or so, I think it is. So repeating, and it's also culminating this bit, and then the distorted guitars kind of fade away like the smoke clearing, and we get this beginning of what no, Soon to Learn is a quite an extended instrumental break, and it's quite a sort of yeah, an interesting one. Um, I'm not quite sure. I've got some ideas, but anyway. So it starts off with these primitive beating of hand drums and almost stick like, um, and these rhythms grow in tempo and rapidity as well. And that's quite well, it seemed to be quite a long period of doing this, and I absolutely loved it. The sound was great. Sort of shit I'd listen to for 10 minutes, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
God, I shouldn't give you ideas, actually. No, I barely tolerated it for a couple of minutes. Yeah, and then around the 5:20 mark, we get the arrival of guitars coming back, the electric guitar, which made me think from what carries on, and it basically it escalates from there in terms of the sound. And what it made me think of was this: he's talking about various themes, and I'll get onto that in a second. But one of the things from regarding the Talking Monkeys is this conflict, development of weapons, arguing, killing each other for all the various things, bits of cloud and sky and blood, they said, but you know, land as well. And it made me this idea that from the sort of the distorted guitars, when they sort of clear away, it's almost like the calling of the firmament, and then you get this basic primitive hand drums and sort of sticks and all that stuff, which then develops into the electric guitar, and it's kind of like the history of conflicts or the history of weapons. So then you get what it sounds to me like gunpowder, and that becomes some heavier riffs that are almost, from my limited knowledge, sort of Black Sabbathy, you know, Led Zepp plus two
Yeah.
kind of riffs, and that reminds me of sort of heavy ordnance. Try not to think of big zeppelins, but you know, but sort of cannons and stuff like that. And then there's a bit, actually, I didn't write this down in my notes, but there's a bit that's almost a bit swirly and weird, and it made me just think of mustard gas. And then it continues, yeah, with a panoply of heavier riffs, motifs. There's almost like a bicycle chain sounding bass, really thumping drums, artillery, etc. And around 6:50, we get to full what I would call Spinal Tap. So we go rolling fills, real heavy, you know, and and the vocals return. So this is kind of the age of modern warfare, which also made me just think immediately of it being able to be viewed on CNN 24/7, and those crazy stuff from the Second Gulf War with the view of the bomb going in through the window into that building and shit like that, which is truly terrifying. I have to say, I can't make out a word he's saying at this point, but you know, fair enough. And I'd say also musically for me, it's kind of just crossed that line as to, you know, acceptable in terms of, you know, musicality and heaviness. I think more into Donington territory here. I mean, it almost took me with it completely. But you know, when you get those people who are afraid to jump and they hold hands, and they get to the edge of the cliff, jump into the water, they go 1, 2, 3, go, and the one just doesn't, and the other go flying off. That was me not going. So yeah, but yeah, it's really interesting. Having kind of then made the point, as it were, the song retreats slowly. Where again, there's really interesting sort of metallic clunks and soft cymbal. You know, they almost sound like gongs but muted. And yeah, I picture the song kind of with his hands out saying, "Well, that's told you. Now think on." That kind of attitude as it steps away. So then it fades to Nout, I put my notes. So yeah, some interesting points there. And I just thought the title, and I'm not sure about any of this, but right in two and the way he's saying it. I mean, immediately you think of division, and whether division is polarization, or is it sharing, or do you diminish the value of something by cutting it in half? So then you think of Solomon's judgments, And then for me, it's just because of the background I had for a while, I think of mitosis, cell division, the basis of all sort of growth and healing. Um, and it's interesting is when mitosis, you get two identical daughter cells, and you get genetic stability because of that. Whereas meiosis, you have cell division in half, but half of them are chromosomes, which enables reproduction and the development of the gene pool. And these are all sort of right in two, as it were, different things. Probably nothing to do with the soul, but it just made me think of that anyway. Um, so yeah, I think there's a bit of different things within this. Definitely this division, polarization, I think. And then the weaponizing of, you know, if there are enough to go around and who gets what share as well. It's quite interesting. So yeah, overall, pretty good. Musically, just a bit rich for my taste in terms of the heaviness. Not terrible though, not unenjoyable.
Mhm.
But really thoughtful and interesting in lyrics. So it had me at that in terms of taking it all the way through. So really did enjoy this a lot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm glad you did. I thought you would. This is around the time. They've always been really good at looking at music through that metal lens, but in a very different way than a lot of their counterparts, contemporaries, and even those that came before and would come thereafter. They're very special, this collective of musicians in that regard. And I thought this would have almost like an oh brother effect with you, where yes, they are going to lead you into waters that you don't often charter, but the trip to get you there would be enough to see you through. And it sounds like it almost got you there. Maybe not quite as much as it did with some of the Oh Brother tracks,
Yeah.
but it has that
Yeah, yeah,
quality.
yeah. Similar.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'm really glad you liked it. I think that the subject matter that they're covering now is it's almost nauseatingly apropos to right now because it's been nauseatingly apropos to times that have led up to where we are. So there's this you keep touching the stove while it's on but not learning kind of thing that kind of aggravates me about it. But I'm sure it aggravated them when they wrote this all these years ago, and now it still kind of is applicable in today's world. We have, one major front happening over closer to where you are. Then we have the Middle East, I should say, in Greater Europe, and then what we have in the Middle East, and our involvement there, and our lack of involvement in the former, not the latter, as far as what's happening on the front of Ukraine. It's uh, just sad that we keep coming to these crossroads where songs like this and the sentiment behind them can be wildly apropos. But yeah, that's obviously what it's touching on. So I will get into more about the song as I cover a bit about the band, and there is a bit to cover because these guys are pretty prolific in their niche and their sound. Um, yeah, Tool. They're an American rock band formed in Los Angeles in 1990. And the band consists of vocalists and, genius. All of them are in their own right, but I have a special spot for Maynard James Keenan in my heart. They're vocalists. They're also guitarist Adam Jones, drummer Danny Carey, and I have to say, like, I know that there are a handful of drummers out there that you really admire, and I would be, dare I say, bold enough to say that Carey can hold water with any of them. He's one of the best drummers in hard rock, in all rock and roll. And if you've ever stumbled into the rabbit hole of watching some of his drum solos and live work, your mind would be blown, I assure you. And also bassist Justin Chancellor, who actually replaced the member Paul Diamore in 1995. So he's been with the band for a very long time, but he is their second bassist. Tool has won 4 Grammy Awards, performed worldwide tours, and produced albums topping charts in several different countries. The band's released 5 studio albums, which is quite a small number when you consider how long they've been around, but Tool moves in the way the Tool wants to, and also taking into consideration the amount of other projects that Maynard is part of. I think it limits their ability, but it kind of underscores the amount of thought and process they go into creating whole albums where they don't want to rush things just for the sake of rushing them. That's very much like Tool as well. So they emerged with the heavy metal sound on their first studio album, Undertow, which came out in 1993 and became a dominant act in the alternative metal movement with the release of their follow-up album, Anima, in 1996. The group's efforts to combine musical experimentation, visual arts, and a message of personal evolution continued with Lateralis in 2001 and 10,000 Days in 2006. That's the album on which this song features, gaining critical acclaim and international commercial success. Their fifth studio album, Fear Inoculum, was released on August 30th, 2019 to widespread critical acclaim. And prior to its release, the band had sold more than 13 million albums in the US alone. Due to Tool's incorporation of visual arts and very long and complex releases, the band has been described as a style transcending act and part of the progressive rock, psychedelic rock, and art rock movements. The relationship between the band and the music industry is ambivalent, at times marked by censorship and the band's sort of insistence on privacy, as well as these long gaps between releasing albums. I think that only endears them more to fans and other musicians, though it may polarize some of those who cover music in the form of, like, critics and music journalists. But to hell with them, as I'm sure Tool would say. During the 1980s, each of the future members of Tool moved to Los Angeles. Both Paul D'Amour and Adam Jones wanted to enter the film industry, while Maynard James Keenan, who had studied visual arts in Michigan, worked as, of all things, a pet store remodeler. That's quite a niche of remodeling, just pet stores. Danny Carey and Keenan performed for Green Jelly, and Carey played with Carole King and Pygmy and Pygmy Love Circus as well. Keenan and Jones met through a mutual friend in '89 after Keenan played Jones a tape recording of his previous band project. Jones was so impressed by his voice that he eventually talked his friend into forming a new band. They started jamming together while searching for a drummer and a bass player. Carey happened to live above Keenan and was introduced to Jones by, of all people, Tom Morello, an old high school friend of Jones and former member of the band Electric Sheep. Carey began playing in their sessions because he felt kind of sorry for them, according to him, as other invited musicians were not showing up. So Tool's lineup was completed when a friend of Jones introduced members to bassist Paul D'Amour. After almost 2 years of practicing and performing locally in Los Angeles, the band was approached by record companies and eventually signed a record deal with Zoo Entertainment. And in March 1992, Zoo released the band's first effort, Opiate. Tool was described by Patrick Donovan of The Age as the thinking person's metal band, cerebral and visceral, soft and heavy, melodic and abrasive, tender and yet brutal, familiar and yet strange, Western and Eastern, beautiful and ugly, taut yet sprawling and epic. They are a tangle of contradictions. Tool has gained critical praise from the International Herald Tribune's C.B. Liddell for their complex and ever-evolving sound. Describing their general sound, AllMusic refers to them as grinding post-Jane's Addiction heavy metal, and the New York Times sees similarities to Led Zeppelin's heaving, battering guitar riffs, and Middle Eastern modes. Their 2001 work, Lateralis, was compared by AllMusic to Pink Floyd's Metal from 1971, but 30 years later and altered by Tool's impulse to cram every inch of infinity with hard guitar meat and absolute dread. Tool would also take on the label of post-metal as the genre label was used to define them in 93, 96, and in 2006 after the term came into popularity. A component of Tool's song repertoire relies on the use of unusual time signatures, which can be found in myriad tracks from their discography. Beyond this aspect of the band's sound, each band member experiments within his musical scope. Bass Player magazine described Chancellor's bass playing as having a thick mid-range tone, guitar-style techniques, which was probably some of that second guitar you picked up in your one listen here, and having elastic versatility. As an example of this, the magazine mentioned the use of wah effect by hammering the notes with the left hand and using the bass's tone controls to get a tone sweep in his playing, such as seen in this or heard in the song "The Patient" from Lateralis. Completing the band's rhythm section, drummer Carey uses polyrhythms, tabla-style techniques, and the incorporation of custom electronic drum pads to trigger samples, such as pre-recorded tabla and octoband sounds. So on top of playing the drums, when he strikes certain areas of the drums, it triggers this extra sound that gives an added richness to the rhythms, which is fucking crazy when you think about it. Keenan's ability as a vocalist has been characterized more subjectively by Seattle Post-Intelligencer. After his performance during an Alice in Chains reunion concert in 2005, freelancer Travis Hay saw him, Keenan, as a natural fit for replacing Lane Staley, who had passed away. Regarding his role in A Perfect Circle and Tool, and really now Pussifer, the New York Times wrote that both groups rely on Mr. Keenan's ability to dignify emotions with like lust, anger, and disgust, the honey in his voice adding a touch of profundity. According to Guitar Player magazine, Jones does not rely on any one particular guitar playing technique, but rather combines many techniques. For example, AllMusic wrote that he alternately utilizes power chords, scratchy noise, chiming arpeggios, and quiet minimalism. Additionally, the band uses forms of instrumental experimentation like the use of a pipe bomb microphone, a guitar pickup mounted inside a brass cylinder, and a talkbox guitar solo on their track Zombie. Definitely one worth checking out. In describing their wide range of styles, critics have noted that they are influenced by as much by Pink Floyd as by the Sex Pistols. In a 1993 interview, Adam Jones mentioned Joni Mitchell, King Crimson, Depeche Mode, and country music as being among their inspirations. And in 1997, Maynard James Keenan named Hejira by Joni Mitchell, Holy Money, Greed by Swans, and Physical Graffiti by Led Zeppelin, Red by King Crimson, and Passion by Peter Gabriel as his 5 favorite records of all time. Danny Carey cited Neil Peart from Rush, which is no big surprise, Bill Bruford, and Alan White of Yes as his biggest rock influences. Adam Jones also stated that Robert Fripp's performances with King Crimson caused him to wake up to music as a teen. Furthermore, he acknowledged other King Crimson guitarists, Adrian Bellawand, Trey Gunn, along with Buzz Osborne from the Melvins as his biggest influence. The track we listened to today features on 10,000 Days, the band's 4th studio album. The album was released by Tool Dissectional and Volcano Entertainment on April 28, 2006, in parts of Europe, April 29, 2006 in Australia, May 1st, 2006 in the UK, and the next day, the 2nd in 2006 in North America. It marked the first time since recording 1993's Undertow that the band had worked at Grandmaster and without producer David Bottrill. Forgive me. 10,000 Days spawned 3 top 10 rock singles: Vicarious, The Pot, which I think I'm going to give to you at some point, and the aforementioned Zombie. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 chart in the first week, reaching sales of 564,000 copies. The album was awarded a double platinum certification by both the RIAA and the RMNZ. It was also certified platinum in both Australia and Canada, and gold in Belgium, Germany, Ireland, Poland, and the United Kingdom. 10,000 Days was Tool's last release for more than a decade. The band would not release their next studio album, Fear Inoculum, until August of 2019. 10,000 Days received a Grammy Award in 2006 for Best Recording Package. The same year, the song Vicarious was nominated for the Grammy Award for Best Hard Rock Performance. And in 2008, 10,000 Days garnered another Grammy nomination when The Pot was nominated for Best Hard Rock Performance. Rob Theakston of AllMusic wrote, "It's not only a step forward for the band, but a re-embracing of the epic-length rock songs found at the roots of early heavy metal." Nick Cowan of Drowned in Sound praised the album, describing it as probably the most engagingly brilliant heavy metal album that'll be released on a major label. Alternative Press magazine wrote, as with everything in Tool's oeuvre, 10,000 Days packs enough beauty, heartache, and triumph that it will be dissected, studied, and envied by younger bands for years to come. Evan Serpic of Rolling Stone stated that the album, that on the album, the band maintains a level of craftsmanship and virtuosity unparalleled in metal. So let's jump into these very interesting lyrics, shall we? Angels on the sideline, puzzled and amused. Why did Father give these humans free will? Now they're all confused. Don't these talking monkeys know that Eden has enough to go around? Plenty in this holy garden, silly monkeys. Where there's one, you're bound to divide it right in two. Angels on the sideline, baffled and confused. Father, bless them all with reason, and this is what they choose. Monkey killing, monkey over pieces of the ground. Silly monkeys, give them thumbs. They forge a blade, and where there's one, they're bound to divide it right in two. Right in two. Monkey killing, monkey over pieces of the ground. Silly monkeys, give them thumbs. They make a club to beat their brother down. How they've survived so misguided is a mystery. Repugnant is a creature who would squander the ability to lift an eye to heaven, conscious of his fleeting time here. Gotta divide it all right in two. 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 Fight till they die over sun, over sky. They fight till they die over sea, over air. They fight till they die over blood, over love. They fight till they die over words, polarizing. Angels on the sideline again, benched along with patience and reason. Angels on the sideline again, wondering where this tug of war will end. Gotta divide it all right in two. Gotta divide it all right in two. Gotta divide it all right in two. Right in two. Right in two. So, yeah, as you can probably imagine, overall, like Right in Two invites listeners to reflect on the complexities of human nature and the ways in which we often create barriers between ourselves and others. It challenges the audience to consider the possibility of unity and understanding amidst chaos. The song's intricate musical composition further enhances these themes, creating a profound listening experience that resonates with many listeners. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about this idea of almost musically showing the evolution of man and warfare, and how they've taken this ugly thing and only made it bigger and uglier and more pervasive throughout time and throughout mankind's evolution, to the point where we're getting bombs that you can watch in real time enter windows and fucking destroy life, and it's just I think it's one of my favorite songs about this kind of subject matter, hands down. And yeah, I also like was hoping that you would pick up on some of this. Ironically, I'm going to use a quote from from Spinal Tap, but Zeppelin 211, kind of taking it up a notch. And you can see how some of the Zeppelin's music has, this is sort of them taking the baton and doing more with it, or taking it to sort of the next level, if you will. So yeah, man, I'm really glad you gave this thing a go, and that I could foist some Tool on you, even though it was probably a little begrudgingly on your part. But there's a lot to be extrapolated and enjoyed in this kind of music, and you know, I'm not just throwing Ride the Lightning at you or Pantera at you, which, you know, if you're a speed metal fan or whatever, that stuff's mother's milk, but I know that you're not. So this is looking at metal through a different lens. One that I think you're more familiar with, or at least can relate to more than perhaps some of those aforementioned bands that I just mentioned. So thanks for going out on a limb and giving Tool a listen, John. I really appreciate your time, buddy.
Yeah, not so.
Excellent, excellent. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of the song Right in Two by Tool. If you heard, I mean, there were a lot of mentions of like who inspired their sound individually and as a group. If any of that shined through as you gave this a listen, please let us know what you heard, or maybe if you heard some other stuff in there. I'd be really interested to hear what you guys have to say. I know there's probably going to be plenty of Tool fans that come check this out, but for all you non-Tool fans, the very few of you, I'm sure you're in the minority, that clicked on this video to give it a go, what was your take on it? I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. If it's not evident enough, I'm a pretty big mark for Maynard James Keenan and Tool's work. So please give stuff a shout out in the comments field below. If there's other stuff by them that we should check out, or any other artists, please feel free to give us suggestions. We really love hearing from you guys. And if you haven't already and you enjoyed this episode or any of our other episodes, please like, share, and subscribe if you'd be so inclined. It really does help us at the channel. We really, really do appreciate it. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.